Hi, I'm Jacob Hornberger, president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, and I'm coming to you all today to talk to you about my new book that I'm very excited about. It's entitled An Encounter with Evil, the Abraham Zapruder Story. I think you all are going to enjoy this book. I'm a little biased, of course, but I think you'll also find that it's a major contribution to understanding the Kennedy assassination, and most important, why that assassination is so relevant to the crises that are facing our country today, especially with respect to foreign affairs. Now, who was Abraham Zapruder? Well, many of you all know that he was a Dallas businessman who went out into Dealey Plaza where the president was assassinated, and with his home movie camera, and he gets up on a pedestal near what is now known as the Grassy Knoll, and he proceeds to film the assassination of President Kennedy. That film became known famously as the Zapruder film. Well, last summer I happened to come across a book entitled 26 Seconds, A Personal History of the Zapruder Film, that was written by Zapruder's granddaughter, Alexandra Zapruder. I thought, well, this will be an interesting read, kind of learn what happened with the family in this film and so forth. But as I start reading this book, I'm like, whoa, I'm taken aback, because it's revealing things, personal things about the family with respect to this film that I never knew about. For example, she says that there was a 50-year-long family taboo against discussing the film within the family. Just couldn't do it. Now, she denies that it was an actual taboo. She says, well, there wasn't really an express prohibition, but there was a code, that's the word she uses, or a culture within the family that it is not to be discussed. Well, that's precisely what a family taboo is. For example, when she was 11 years old, she talks about how she learned about the film, but could not go and ask her parents about it. I mean, by that time, everybody knew that the taboo was in existence. So she sneaks into the library at school in what she calls a clandestine endeavor and looks up William Manchester's book, The Death of a President, to read about her grandfather's film. So I'm reading this and saying, wow, what is this all about? Because I just know that whenever there's a family taboo, there's usually a dark secret behind that taboo. And I thought, okay, now what's going to be the dark secret here as I'm reading this book? Well, she comes up with two explanations for this taboo. And she admits, as I state in the introduction to the book, that this was going to be a scary thing for her, because she was violating this culture, this code in the family for the first time in 50 years. She didn't know what the reaction was going to be, but more important, she didn't know what she was going to uncover. So she was clearly nervous, and rightly so, because of this notion that there's dark secrets behind family taboos. So she ultimately comes up with two explanations for the taboo. And I'm reading this and thinking, are you kidding? The first one, she says, is that her grandfather was so conflicted over the large amount of money that he made on the film that it just caused all kinds of internal consternation for him. It ends up ruining his life. He has no peace of mind, and therefore the taboo came into existence. We just can't discuss the film. Okay, so the guy makes $150,000. He negotiates with Life magazine on the very weekend of the assassination for $150,000, which doesn't seem like a big, large sum of money in today's terms, but in today's dollars, it was huge. It was equivalent to $1.3 million. It would be like somebody today selling their 26-second film for $1.3 million. That's a large sum of money. Well, the second explanation she has is that her grandfather was so grief-stricken, so traumatized over having witnessed the assassination of the president and filmed the assassination that it ruined the rest of his life, and that therefore nobody could discuss the film in the family. I'm reading this and saying, this is pure nonsense. I mean, this is nonsense. And so I decide that I'm going to make it my quest over the summer to figure out what's really going on here. Because her two explanations are just nonsensical. For example, if he was so guilt-ridden over having received so much money, all he had to do was contact Life magazine, to whom he had sold the film, and that were paying him yearly installments of $25,000, and say, I don't want the money. I don't want the rest of the money. Just don't send it to me. He never did that. And when he got the money, he could have given it away. So I'm thinking that just makes no sense. And then there was a lot of people that were grief-stricken over Kennedy's death, but there's no record at all of any family coming up with a taboo that lasts for 50 years because of the grief associated with Kennedy's demise. And there's even something more significant than this. He dies in 1970, and the taboo extends for another 40-some-odd years, till she was around 40 years old when she finally decides that she's going to write this book. And so why would a taboo extend beyond his death if he was so grief-stricken or was making so much money? And notice another thing, that if he was so grief-stricken, how did that affect him in terms of getting all this money for the film? I mean, he spent the entire weekend of the assassination getting his film developed, showing it to the media, talking about it, going to his lawyer's office, getting affidavits as to how the film was being copied. I mean, he did all this work to get $1.3 million, so clearly his grief did not prevent him from getting top dollar for his film. So I figured, well, what I'm going to do is figure it out, and I did figure it out. And that's the thesis of my book. I figured out this dark secret, and you'll see what the dark secret is. But I build it in the book in the context of the Kennedy assassination, including the fraudulent autopsy. Now, y'all know that I've written a book on the Kennedy autopsy and the fraudulent autopsy, in which I state unequivocally, and have for many years, that there's no innocent explanation for a fraudulent autopsy. I mean, once you establish that the military performed a fraudulent autopsy, that's it, because there's no innocent explanation for a fraudulent autopsy. So what I show in this book is that the Zapruder film has a direct relationship to the fraudulent autopsy, and I explain that very carefully in the book. And in the context, develop the other aspects of the assassination, Kennedy's war with the national security establishment, a vicious war in which Kennedy was firing top officials in the CIA, downgrading their power. They were furious at him. They considered him a betrayer of America, that he was going to lead America to a communist takeover. Same with the military. Huge fight between the military and Kennedy, especially after the Cuban Missile Crisis, when one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff compared Kennedy's resolution or handling of the crisis to Neville Chamberlain's appeasement of Hitler at Munich. Imagine that, a subordinate officer saying this to his commander-in-chief. And then they called it the worst defeat, the biggest defeat in U.S. history, how Kennedy resolved that crisis. So there was this actual war going on. I developed that. And then the Cold War context of the assassination, all the regime change operations that were taking place, the coups, the state-sponsored assassinations like against Patrice Lumumba. So all of this is enveloped in resolving this mystery, because it's all interrelated. This mystery of Abraham Zapruder and his dark secret that leads to this family taboo. So I think you're going to really enjoy this. I've got preliminary feedback. People are really giving me some good feedback. 2 people already finished the book, and they said, just gave me really positive feedback on it. So I want to encourage you to buy it. Like I say, I'm biased, but I think you're going to like it. It's $9.95 for the Kindle version and $14.95 for the print version. And if you do buy it and you read it, please be sure to put some feedback there at Amazon. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening to my pitch here for my book. And I look forward to talking to y'all some more about it.